everyone. So today I'm going to talk about defining what is your role within a network society. Who are you within this greater context, and what do you have to contribute to a large group, to a large network? So I want to start off talking about this lecture that I heard from a researcher and founder of the Webby Awards. Her name is Tiffany Shlain. She was discussing that when you're first born, the first experience of feeling disconnected is when your umbilical cord is cut. She says this moment when you're vulnerable, when your umbilical cord is cut, this is the first experience where you feel lost and you don't know how you kind of exist within a greater context. She then goes on to explain that then for the rest of your entire life, you spend yourself reaching out to religion, to faith, to art, to organizations, to family, in order to become a part of something larger than yourself, in order to kind of get to this point where it's this transcendent experience of feeling part of something bigger. So I want to talk about the anthill effect. I've been researching a variety of different superorganisms. So in the world, there are 5 superorganisms: ants, termites, bees, naked mole rats, and humans. And essentially, it requires the collective body to kind of maintain the health and well-being of all the individual parts. So with this idea of the anthill, every single ant within this colony acts like cells to a body, where then the anthill itself becomes almost this living, breathing organism. And I'm really just fascinated by that idea that humans are part of this. We're surviving in a society that is acting as its own living, breathing thing. So networks give us a sense of perspective. Google Maps, for example, that was an enormous experience where we were able to kind of see ourselves relative to the rest of the world. You can actually pinpoint where you are in context to everything else. So with that, I want to kind of take a closer look of how do you relate to the people around you? What is your role within larger groups of people? What is your role within your families when you're going to apply for a job? Before you're able to kind of establish yourself within this greater collective, you have to know who you are. What is it that you represent? What is it that you're contributing to this colony effect? So then I started to do some research about this idea of how to become part of something larger than yourself. And I was realizing that in science, there's a lot of research being done that the purest form of happiness is being part of something larger than yourself, and that being the thing that everyone strives for in their life. Again, relating to the umbilical cord analogy. So when we have the internet and we have all these different tools to connect, how is that able to build our own happiness? There's also been further research which has shown that every time you receive a tweet or a text message or a blog post, there's actually a release of dopamine in your brain that's causing you to become happier. So we can contribute to each other in building each other's own happiness simply through the networks that are structuring our entire lives. Go back. So how do I fit in? I'm an artist. I make art. I make connections. I look at an array of different network structures, anything from molecular systems, social networks, economic structures, business models, and just starting to make these comparisons of how these networks dictate our everyday life. And I suppose I do this because it kind of gives me a sense of how I exist within this greater context. Who am I as an artist, and who am I in this world? So I want to just briefly discuss kind of the phases of my artwork. This first phase is a series of aerial view paintings that I started to create as soon as I came to Los Angeles. Essentially, I was from a very small mountain town where I was focusing all of my work on kind of my personal story, my memories, my experience with loss, all of these different things. But as soon as I came to LA, my world changed. I started to absorb my environment and started to kind of translate this in a visual way that was representing all these different networks from an aerial view. My second phase was then just kind of taking this idea of seeing how housing tracts are created and comparing that to the relationships of people. seeing how is a single person kind of lost in this greater mass. And so then I started to do these studies of crowds. Then along the lines, there started to be all these Facebook posts that were mapping people's Facebook friends. And I started to realize that when I compared my aerial view paintings to that of the crowds of people that I was drawing and illustrating, that there's actually a lot of the similar structural properties that kind of relate the two images. So then I started to see how my Facebook map is very much like the deltas and streams that exist within these paintings. Some of the structural properties that start to appear are hubs and connectors, small network diameters, and clustering and connectivity, similar to friends-of-friend relationships. So then this led to the development of another collection of artworks, which was just focusing on the forms of these networks, kind of taking an abstract expressionist perspective, but really just seeing how these forms exist. And then there was a turning point. So last year, I participated in a competition called Art Takes Times Square. Essentially, with this competition, I created a profile that was showcasing a lot of my artwork, and I was posting my profile online. People were voting and spreading this information through Facebook, through Twitter, and I was actually able to receive enough votes that then I was able to take my painting, which I created in my studio in Los Angeles, to an LED screen in Times Square, all through the votes that were taking place on the internet. So this was enormous. I took a minute and I was like, how is my single message starting to have this ripple effect and actually take one of my original artworks and show it to masses of people who I've never even met before? So then I started to develop this 365-day art project called Network Life. This is exploring all the different networks in order to kind of help me understand what is my place within this larger system. So I'm making comparisons, anything from political structures to patterns on leaves, to the fractals that exist with snowflakes, to the branches that exist with plants, and just kind of taking almost this like pseudoscientist perspective of how I can make these visual comparisons. So this is just kind of a screenshot of a lot of the different tiles that I've built out. And this project will eventually be a large-scale mosaic about 15 feet by 10 feet wide. So with this drawing, this is all drawn with one continuous line to show how we're all interconnected. And I want to kind of pull back and really help you guys kind of understand what is the thing that attaches you to everyone else? And I want you to realize, too, that we have so many communication channels available to us, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, blogs, all of these different platforms to produce content and spread it to the rest of the world. So whether or not you're producing high-quality content or just filling it with this virtual garbage, I think that that requires you to be aware that you held an immense amount of responsibility in the content you're producing. Similar to this John Muir quote, when you tug at a single thing in the universe, you find that it's attached to everything else. I want you all to be aware that this is an incredible opportunity for you to stand out within the crowd, for you to create your own ripple effect and spread information and share it with other people. And by producing this content, then you'll be able to find that higher sense of being, that acknowledging the power of influence, you'll be able to know how you can influence the rest of the world and become part of something larger than yourself. So what are you going to do in spreading your own message through this network society? I encourage you all to take a strand, understand what you can share, and be connected. Thank you.